All right, let's talk about one of the most fundamental and, frankly, most misunderstood protocols on the internet, UDP, the User Datagram Protocol. Now, you've probably heard it's simple, right? Some people even call it the Null Protocol. But here's the thing, that simplicity is a bit of a trap. It hides a ton of complexity that anyone building real-world applications has to deal with. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. Okay, so the absolute best way to wrap your head around UDP is to put it right next to its more famous sibling, TCP. Think of TCP like a phone call. You pick up the phone, you dial, the other person answers, you say hello, you've established a connection. You know they're there, and you have a real back and forth conversation. UDP? Ha. UDP is like writing a note, stuffing it in a bottle, and just chucking it into the ocean. You just send it and hope it gets there. There's no guarantee it will arrive, you'll get no notification if it sinks, and if you send a bunch of them, there's no telling what order they'll wash up on shore. And that analogy leads us straight to what UDP actually is. It is, by design, a minimal protocol. That nickname, the Null Protocol, is just perfect because UDP's most important feature isn't what it does, it's what it doesn't do. It intentionally throws out all the safety nets, all the guarantees that TCP has, all in the name of one thing: pure, unadulterated speed. To really appreciate just how minimal it is, we've got to look one layer deeper in the network stack, down to the Internet Protocol, or IP. IP is basically the global postal service for the internet. Its one job is to get a packet from a source address to a destination address. But, and this is the key, IP itself is unreliable. It's a best effort service. If some router in the middle of the path gets overwhelmed, it's allowed to just drop your packet on the floor, and it's not going to tell you it happened. So, if the IP layer is already unreliable, what does UDP actually add on top of it? Well, look at this. Barely anything. We're talking a tiny 8-byte header. Its main purpose is to add source and destination port numbers. That's how your computer knows whether to send this incoming data to your video game, your voice call, or some other app. And that's basically it. UDP is pretty much just the raw, unreliable IP protocol with port numbers bolted on. So to truly understand UDP, you have to get familiar with its so-called non-services. It offers zero guarantee that your message will be delivered. It gives you no guarantee that messages will arrive in the order you sent them. It doesn't track any state, meaning each packet is a complete stranger to the next. And this one's huge. It has absolutely no congestion control. It will just blast data as fast as it can, even if it's flooding the network. Now remember, these aren't bugs, they are features. It's a deliberate trade-off that gives the developer total control and total responsibility. You know, for a while, back on the early internet, this all worked just fine. This minimalist approach was great. But then the internet exploded in popularity, and we ran headfirst into a problem that changed everything for UDP. This brings us to the main villain of our story, the Great Wall of NAT. And this really gets to the heart of it all. If this protocol is so wonderfully simple, why is it so ridiculously hard to build real-world applications with it? The answer, in 3 letters, is NAT. NAT stands for Network Address Translator. And I can pretty much guarantee you have one. It's that router your internet provider gave you. It was invented back in the 90s as a temporary band-aid because we were quickly running out of IPv4 addresses. The idea was simple. Let all the devices in your home, your laptop, your phone, your TV, which all have private internal IP addresses, share one single public IP address when they talk to the outside world. So, how does this thing actually work? Well, let's say your computer sends a packet out to a server on the internet. Your NAT router grabs it on the way out. It looks at your internal IP and port, and it creates a new entry in a special logbook, its translation table. It maps your internal info to its own public IP and a new port number it just made up. Then, when the server replies, the NAT just looks in its logbook and knows, this packet is for the laptop at 192.168.1.5. But here's where it all goes wrong for UDP. NAT devices are obsessed with state. They need to know when a conversation begins and when it ends so they can keep that translation table clean. TCP is perfect for this. It has that formal handshake to start a session and a clear goodbye to end it. NAT knows exactly when to create and delete the entry. But UDP? It's stateless. It's just firing off those messages in a bottle. The NAT has no clue when the conversation is over, so it has to guess. It just starts a timer, and if it doesn't see any packets for, say, 30 seconds, poof, it just deletes the entry, and your connection is silently dead. And that leads to an even bigger, more fundamental problem. What happens if someone on the outside wants to talk to you first? Say, for a peer-to-peer video call. A packet from them arrives at your router's public IP. Then that looks at its translation table and sees nothing. There's no existing entry. It has no idea which device inside your home this packet is for. So what does it do? It just drops it, throws it in the garbage. For things like online gaming or voice chat, this is an absolute showstopper. So if NAT is this giant invisible wall, how in the world do we get our UDP packets through it? Well, over the years, some very clever engineers came up with a whole toolkit of tricks to do just that. It's a field known as NAT traversal. The first tool in our kit is called Stun. That's for Session Traversal Utilities for NAT. And its primary job is one of discovery. See, your application, sitting behind that NAT, doesn't even know what its own public IP address is. Stun is how it finds out. And the way it works is really quite ingenious. Your app sends a UDP packet out to a public Stun server on the internet. It's basically just asking, hey, from your perspective, who am I? What IP address and port do you see me using? The Stun server then just replies back with that information. This one simple exchange solves two problems. First, your app now knows its public address. And second, this is the magic part, that outgoing packet punches a hole in the NAT, creating that all-important entry in the translation table. Now, other people can send packets to you at that address. But Stun isn't a silver bullet. Some types of NATs, especially in big corporate networks, are just too restrictive. For those really tough cases, we need a plan B. And that fallback is called turn. The key word you need to remember here is relay. Turn is our powerful but very expensive last resort. When you use turn, you're basically giving up on a direct connection. Instead, both you and the person you're trying to talk to connect to a public turn server. That server then acts like a mailman, relaying every single packet back and forth between you. Now, this is super reliable. It almost always works. But it comes with a massive trade-off. It's not peer-to-peer anymore. All of your data is now bouncing through a third-party server, which costs someone money to run and adds a bunch of latency. So you might be wondering, how often do we actually need these different tools? Well, some data from Google sheds a lot of light on this. It turns out that about 92% of the time, you can get a direct connection working using Stun. But for that last stubborn 8%, a turn relay is absolutely essential. And you can't build a reliable service if you just decide to ignore 8% of your users. So in the real world, you need both. And this is where it all comes together in a master plan called ICE, which stands for Interactive Connectivity Establishment. You can think of ICE as the conductor of an orchestra. It's a framework that intelligently manages this whole process. An ICE-enabled application will automatically gather all the possible ways it could be reached, its local IP, its Stun address, its turn relay, and then it tries to find the best possible path to connect, in order. It'll always try the direct connection first, then Stun, and only if all else fails will it fall back to using turn. Okay, so now we understand the problem of NATs and the toolkit we have to get around them. So let's shift gears and talk about the professional's playbook. If you're a developer or a senior engineer, how should you be thinking about using UDP in a real production system? I have to start with this quote because it is such an important warning. When you're working with UDP, it's so tempting to think, oh, I'll just add my own reliability. I'll build my own congestion control. But you have to remember that the algorithms inside TCP have been battle-tested and refined for decades by the entire internet engineering community. It's incredibly easy to spend months of hard work only to end up with your own buggy, slow, and poorly implemented version of TCP. If you do decide to go down this road and build on raw UDP, you have a duty to be a good citizen of the internet. The official best practices are clear. You must implement some form of congestion control. You have to be fair and try not to use more bandwidth than a TCP stream would in the same situation. You have to back off when you detect packet loss, and of course, you have to use Keepalive, sending tiny packets every 15 seconds or so just to keep those fragile NAT sessions from timing out. With UDP, the burden is all on you. Now, I know this all probably sounds like a huge headache, like you need a PhD in network engineering just to build a peer-to-peer app. But here's the good news. For the vast majority of use cases today, you do not have to do this from scratch. The modern, production-ready solution is WebRTC. Think of WebRTC as a massive toolkit that has already solved all of these hard problems for you. It has a full ICE implementation built right in, so it handles all the stun and turn negotiation automatically. It has sophisticated production-grade congestion control that's been tested at massive scale. It's optimized for real-time media, and the best part? It's a standard API built into every single modern web browser. So we've come full circle.
The simple protocol isn't so simple after all. UDP offers that raw, low-latency speed that TCP just can't touch, but it comes at a steep price in engineering complexity. For most real-time apps, frameworks like WebRTC are absolutely the right choice. But for those extreme edge cases, we're talking high-frequency trading, AAA online gaming, where every single microsecond counts, that raw power is still there, waiting to be used. And that really leaves us with a final question for you to think about. For your next project, is that raw speed really worth the monumental effort? Thanks for joining me.